Hey there, this is Alex from English and Visa Consultancy. Welcome to this video. If you are searching for PTE Repeat Sentence tips and tricks, you've come to the right place. We have posted tons of videos on our page regarding how to tackle PTE Repeat Sentences, but I decided to share everything in one video. And if you ever want to go into more detail, check the links in the description and watch the other repeat sentence videos. So PTE Repeat Sentences are some of the hardest questions that anybody's going to get on the exam. The reason why it's unfair, it's difficult, and a lot of these sentences are very long. And I quite often tell my students a story. In the past, PTE used to be much easier. And I would go just casually in the morning, wake up, put my t-shirt on, go to the exam, and see what new questions they've added. And PTE repeat sentences were always easy. And then one day I showed up to the exam, and the first sentence that I got, my jaw almost hit the table. Believe it or not, that sentence was 17 words. 17 words. Can you imagine? And I thought to myself, I could have the smartest guy in the world. I could have Barack Obama or Albert Einstein trying to do this sentence. There's no way that they're going to be able to get it. So if I cannot get it, how am I going to teach you or my students to get the sentence correct? It's unfair. So we had to go back to the drawing board and we had to figure out some plan to tackle repeat sentences. And what we realized, PTE actually changed the marking of repeat sentences. They look the same, they sound the same, maybe a little bit longer, maybe a little bit shorter, but internally the marking has been changed. And here's the main reason, which brings me to tip number one. You have to understand how does the scoring work. And I'll finish the story at the end, so make sure to keep watching. I'll tell you exactly what the sentence is and see if you can get it by yourself. So tip number one is you need to understand the scoring. And I have somewhere else, you can check it out here and in the description, nearly 20 minutes in-depth tutorial explaining how the marking in repeat sentences works. But the main takeaway is this. Don't focus on what is the total number of words that you can remember. Focus on getting as many words as you can in sequence. So what does that mean? If I have 10 words and I made a mistake in my second word and I made a mistake in my sixth word or seventh word, okay? I think I'm doing well. I got 8 out of 10 words correct. I only made 2 small mistakes. So I should be getting 80% of the marks, right? Wrong. This is not the case anymore. It used to be like this. And believe it or not, I used to teach my students that if you miss some words in the middle, just mumble. So they'd be doing this. Professor Smith for today's lecture. And believe it or not, they used to get 80 plus. Now, the reason why is because they were getting 6, 7 words and they were maintaining their oral fluency. So they were getting enough marks in speaking and in listening. Whereas nowadays, repeat sentences are all about the sequence.
But to give you a quick idea of how it works, if you look here, this is the official PTE scoring guide. We got repeat sentences, the number of questions, and how the scoring is given. You're going to get half of your points in the listening, half of your points in the speaking. Now, obviously for the speaking, it's about your pronunciation, it's about your oral fluency, but what we want to focus on here is the content, because most people don't actually fail their speaking, they fail their listening. And the main reason is this. Any error is a replacement, omission, meaning you skipped a word, insertion. Of course, there could be hesitations, filled or unfilled pauses, and so on, but these are not counted for the scoring of the content. So this would affect your speaking. Now, for the content, for the listening points, you get 3 out of 3 if all the words in the response from the prompt in the correct sequence. So let's say if you got 10 words, you said all 10 perfectly correct in the right order. You'd get 2 out of 3 points for at least 50% of the words in the response in correct sequence. What does that mean? That means if you make a single mistake, out of 10 words, you say 9 correct. Automatically, you'll not be getting 3 out of 3. Now you're dropped straight to 2 out of 3 points. But on the bright side, if you get half of the sentence and the rest of the words are completely wrong, but fluent, you will still get the majority of the marks. You will get 1 point if you get less than 50% of the words, and then of course 0 if almost nothing. So very important.
So if I did this trick again, it doesn't work anymore because I'm breaking the sequence straight in the middle. So my piece of advice is always focus on the beginning part of the sentence. Out of 10 words, always focus on the first 5. Make sure you get them perfectly in sequence. No mistakes. You didn't miss a word. You didn't add an extra word. You didn't hesitate. You didn't repeat yourself. It has to be exactly the same. And then for the second half of the sentence, you maintain your fluency. You just got to keep saying something in order to show the computer that you didn't pause, you didn't hesitate. Again, I have a 20-minute video on this. You can watch it later on. So tip number 1 is understand the scoring, and that it's not about how smart you are and how many words you can get in total. It's how many words are you able to get in sequence uninterrupted. Now, as a bonus, you could get the first half, you could get the last half, you could get half of the sentence in the middle. It doesn't really matter, but it's about getting words in sequence. And if you're able to get to the point that you're getting 5 words in a row consistently, I guarantee that you can get 79 plus in this exam. But it takes some practice, it takes some training, because oftentimes we listen, we remember, and then it keeps playing on and on and on. And you go, I already forgot the beginning. And then I just mumble something and say a couple words, and then there's no fluency and there's no sequence. So it's not about how many words you can remember in total, it's how many words you can remember in sequence. Tip number 2, take initials. Take initials. So what does initials mean? That means that you would be writing the first letter of each word. When I did this for the first time, I felt like the biggest dummy in the world, okay?
It's important that humans dispose of their waste in appropriate ways.
Like I'll be getting stuck in the second word thinking, what is the first letter of the word university? Oh yeah, it's U. And then by the time I would order my hand to write the letter U, I would forget the rest of the sentence. So if you practice doing initials and you're struggling for 2, 3, 4 days, don't feel bad. It's normal. It takes a little bit of time. So you have to stick with it. And when I did it the first time, like I told you, I was getting stuck on the second or third word. I'd miss everything else. Whereas now, after doing this for some time, I'm at the point where I'm not even looking at the paper. I'm listening, but my hand is just kind of scribbling down. And if I can remember the sentence, I will repeat it. But if I cannot, I just quickly glance at my paper and I can remember from the next initial.
The financial report for the last quarter will be available this afternoon.
The financial report for the last quarter, blah, 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 blah. Easy.
One caveat to this. When you do this, and again, this is related to point number 1 about the sequence, make sure you're putting extra focus on the S, the ED, the ING. Because remember, even if a single letter is off in a word, that counts as broken sequence. So let's say you write the word universities, write a capital U and a small s. So then you will remember that it's universities and not university. Because again, a lot of times students fail listening and they come to me and they say, no, my repeat sentences were good. I can remember most of them. And then when I test them out and I give them a mock test, incredible. They're getting 8 out of 10 words, 12 out of 15 words, 11 out of 14 words, but they keep breaking the sequence along the way. Instead of in, they say on. Instead of to, they say from. Instead of at, they say in. And any sequence which is broken, doesn't matter where it is, that's going to lower your score significantly. And you may go from getting 80% of the marks to only getting 30% of the marks per sentence. Now, if you multiply this over 10 or 12 sentences, you've already failed your listening and you haven't even gone to the listening section yet. So this is a big issue. So tip number 2 is take initials. Tip number 3, if you tried initials for 10, 12, 14 days and you still really struggle, you cannot get it to work, totally understand that. In that case, you're somebody who's probably very auditory and it's very difficult for you to listen and write at the same time. Your brain just doesn't work that way. I find a lot of Spanish speakers or Portuguese speakers in particular, Italian speakers, usually those languages, they tend to be more like auditory learners. So in that case, what I recommend you do, it's something I call the broken record technique. What is the broken record? Maybe you're too young to remember, but back in the day before CD players, people used to have like these old big vinyl records, right? And sometimes if the needle got stuck, you had a little needle that went on top of the vinyl. And if the needle got stuck, the song would keep playing on a loop, playing on a loop, playing on a loop, playing on a loop, playing on a loop. And then you had to like move it over a centimeter and it would play the next song. So most people, yourself inclusive, if I told you right now, I'm going to give you $1 million, you have to remember these 5 digits. So let's say the number is 758627. What are you going to do? If you don't have paper, you're going to keep 758627, 758627, 758627, 758627, 758627. And if I ask you 752687 or whatever the number is, right? In this case, you're able to remember 5 words, 6 words. How come? Well, the reason why is because you keep repeating it to yourself again and again and again. So here's the trick. When you do repeat sentences, they play the audio. Then you have about 1 to 2 second pause before your recording starts. Okay. Then when your recording starts, you have up until 3 seconds before which you have to speak. Otherwise, if you don't make any noise, you get 0. So basically, you have that 2 second pause before the recording starts. What I recommend you do, when they say the sentence, Professor Smith will be late for today's... Professor Smith will be late for... Professor Smith will be late... Professor Smith will be late for tomorrow's class, as an example. So I didn't get the whole sentence, but I got 6 words in sequence in that case. And the reason why is I keep repeating it to myself. Professor Smith will be late for, Professor Smith will be late for.
My students in the class, I'm just going to quickly go into our platform. And if we go to repeat sentences, I will show you actually what that looks like, because it's one thing to understand logically, but it's another thing to actually be doing this. And I'm always pushing my students to do this out loud. So watch. Students who selected 2 to 3 courses. Students who selected 2 to 3 courses. Students who selected 2 to 3 courses may need an extension. In this case, I don't even know if I got the last couple words correct, but I definitely got more than half. And actually, I did get the whole sentence correct, as you can see, 100%. So very important you keep repeating this to yourself. Don't care so much about missing the last part of the words as long as you got more than half in sequence. Good luck.
Now, many people, they resist that initially because they try to get the whole sentence. And every time they do that and they get greedy, they break the sequence along the way. So based on tip number 1 that I told you, it's about the sequence. You don't actually need to get the whole phrase. You just need to get about 5 to 6 words in a row. So if you can do what I just showed you, I guarantee you, you're going to get 70 to 80% of all of your marks in listening and speaking in repeat sentences. Maybe even more. Depends how well you did. So this is tip number 3, the broken record technique. Tip number 4, and again, this is slightly related to the previous one. Most of the sentences that are longer, okay? You don't need my help with the short ones. So most of the longer sentences, they're usually 2-part sentences. And when they're 2-part sentences, they're usually 12, 14, 15 words. So here's a real exam question. Factors such as cost and function influence the design of a bridge. Let me repeat it again. Try again. Okay, you ready? Factors such as cost and function influence the design of a bridge. Okay. And you can maybe, check again what you said there, but here's the sentence. Factors such as cost and function influence the design of a bridge. So this is 12 words in total. But anytime a sentence gets that long, it's usually a 2-part sentence. Factors such as cost and function, that's 6 words, influence the design of a bridge. Tomorrow's lunchtime seminar on nuclear engineering has been postponed. Tomorrow's lunchtime seminar on. At least those 5 words you're able to get. So you see, it's not about getting the whole sentence. It's about shifting your focus to only focusing on the beginning part. Again, in the short sentences, you don't need my help. But in the long ones, and you can actually tell, because you can kind of remember factors such as cost and function. Okay, I can remember that. And then the sentence keeps playing on and on and on and on and on. Don't keep listening. Know your limit. Maybe you start with 4 words only, then 5, then 6. For me personally, it's about 7 to 8 words. When I repeat it to myself, factors such as cost and function influence, I know this is my limit. If the sentence keeps going for another 5 words, I'm not going to get it. I have to get lucky. So then you have to train yourself. Whatever is your limit, stop listening at that point. Factors such as cost and function, factors such as cost and function, ignore the second part. So again, this is called the chunking technique, where you're chunking the sentence in multiple parts. And you don't need to get the whole sentence again, based on what I told you in tip number 1. You just need to get that one chunk. You just need to get half. Okay, so a lot of content so far. You must be overwhelmed, so you can always rewatch this video later. And again, watch the additional videos because I go into more detail there. The final tip, tip number 5. This is a trick that I've discovered by absolute chance. I didn't know that it's going to work. I had no idea. I just tried it and it's been working for the last 2 years. And I've been doing this with a lot of my students. So again, let's actually try this out right now. Okay. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to say a real exam question and I want you to do the best that you can to remember the whole sentence. All right. So I got a sentence. This is from the real exam. Okay. So get ready. And actually what I would even suggest, open your phone, go to your voice recorder and you record yourself. So you can listen exactly what you said. And you can see where you're making mistakes and that you're probably breaking the sequence. Okay, so you can pause this video, get your phone recorder, and you will see. All right, ready? So here we go. Studies suggest there may be a correlation between educational achievement and family size. Okay, how did you do? And I'll tell you the answer in a second so you can check with your audio. But here's the trick. What I discovered with my students is that if I turn off the volume after about 5 or 6 words, I don't actually let them hear the whole sentence. They're able to remember it quite well. Okay, so we're going to do this one more time. I'm going to say the sentence, but I'm only going to say it halfway through. And as soon as I'm done speaking, I want you to repeat it to yourself one time and then repeat it out loud again. So here's what it would look like. Let's say the sentence is, Professor Smith will be late for today's lecture. Okay, I would turn off the volume after Professor Smith will be late. That's 5 words. So I want you to go, okay, Professor Smith will be late. Professor Smith will be late. Professor Smith will be late. And that's it. Don't say anything else for now. So the sentence I played earlier, the sentence I mentioned earlier, I'm going to do it one more time. I'm only going to say halfway through. And I want you to repeat that half. You ready? Studies suggest there may be a correlation. How did you do? Studies suggest there may be a correlation. Now look at this. Aren't you a smart one? Okay. What I'd like you to do is I'm going to say the whole sentence again, and maybe our editor could type it on the screen. And I want you to listen again to the audio that you've recorded and see how many words you got in sequence. Okay, so here's the sentence. Studies suggest there may be a correlation between educational achievement and family size. 13 words. Studies suggest there may be a correlation between educational achievement and family size. How many do you get in sequence? And I want you to tell me, please. Okay, tell me in the chat, when you recorded it on your own, how many words were you able to get in a row, uninterrupted? Okay? And in this case, where I only said half a sentence, studies suggest there may be a correlation. I guarantee that 90% or 80% of you watching probably were able to get those 7 words correct. So it's not that I'm not smart, my English is not good, my memory is so bad. BS. That's complete BS. It's because when you focus on this much, you're going to forget some things in between. When you only focus on this much and you have the confidence that, hey, this is actually working, people are getting the results like this. In that case, you will have the faith, you will have the confidence to actually do this in the exam. And by being able to remember only 5, 6, or 7 words, you will get a higher mark than the person trying to get the whole sentence and they keep breaking the sequence along the way. So one final piece of advice is when you're practicing this trick and you're turning off the volume, don't actually do this in the exam. Okay? This is not a good idea because then you're not speaking for the second half of the sentence. You're not going to get any marks if you stop after 5 words. So you have to maintain your fluency. You have to fill the gap with something else. But the main point is by doing this for 1 week, you will train yourself to really concentrate and pick up all the little details only in the first part of the sentence, for example. Okay? And then slowly you can let the whole sentence play, but still keep repeating, keep using these tricks that I showed you and only focus on the beginning. And you will see that you will automatically kind of turn off your ears and you will ignore the second part. And you will only focus on those 5, 6, or 7 words. So please don't actually turn off the volume in the exam. This is something you can do during your practice. And after 1 or 2 weeks, you're going to see incredible results.
Now, to show you how to actually do this when you're practicing, let's have a quick look again at our platform. And this is literally what I do with my students in the class. So let's have a look. And remember, initially, you're going to turn off the volume, but then you will not. You need to be careful when quoting. You need to be careful when quoting. You need to be careful when quoting, blah, 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 blah. So obviously, you're not going to say blah, blah, blah in the exam. You're actually going to keep listening. But just initially, this is what we'll do. So let's have a look here. You need to be careful when quoting. Definitely more than half, definitely more than 5 words in sequence. Now, as you get used to this over time, you will do the same thing, but you will no longer turn off the volume. Hardest things about starting university. One of the hardest things about starting university. One of the hardest things about starting university is finding your way around. So you see, I'm focusing on the beginning part, but actually, I'm pretty sure I got the last part correct as well. So you see, I got the sentence as 96% correct, but that's because I just kept talking after the recording was done. So there you go. There you have it. You practice this for like a week. I promise you're going to go from 3 to 4 words to at least 5, 6 words in sequence consistently. Good luck.
And I want you guys to actually comment. How many words were you getting on average in sequence before? And how many words are you getting in sequence after practicing this trick? I guarantee you, you're going to go from 3 or 4 words to at least 5. Guaranteed. Write this down, mark my words, okay? Now you watched the video so far, you're with me for so long. I want to finish the point I mentioned at the very beginning, okay? And I'm going to tell you what is that sentence that I had in my exam that I was absolutely shocked. And I'm going to see if you can remember it, because I couldn't. If you could remember it, hats off to you. You can message us. We'll hire you as a PT teacher. But here's the sentence, okay? You ready? Red and Golden Delicious are 2 of the most commonly grown apple varieties in the world today. Okay? And I'm going to tell you again the answer in 1 second. But first, I'm going to use one of the tricks I just taught you, and we'll see how many words you can get, okay? You ready? So I'm going to say only half a sentence. I want you to remember only that half of the sentence. Okay, here we go. Red and Golden Delicious are 2 of the most commonly grown. Red and Golden Delicious are two of the most commonly grown. If you got this far, you got 11 words. If not, Red and Golden Delicious are two of the. That's 8 words. Now here's the full sentence. Red and Golden Delicious are two of the most commonly grown apple varieties in the world today. I had no chance, okay? And I was so pissed off, I actually left the exam room and I started Googling for the words I could remember. And I found this whole sentence. It's 17 words. I don't care how smart you are, but this is very unfair from PT to give you such long sentences. But based on what I just explained in this whole video, if you're able to get Red and Golden Delicious are two of the, you got more than half of the words in sequence, you're going to be getting almost 70% of your marks in listening. So now you just have to keep maintaining your fluency for the rest of the sentence in order to get full marks in speaking. In total, you would get 100% for speaking, and you would get almost 70% of marks in listening if you did what I just explained. Unbelievable, right? They don't teach you this on any other YouTube videos or any other YouTube channels. So final piece of advice, don't try to memorize these. I know a lot of you there are going on YouTube, you're searching for prediction files. That's great. But repeat sentences, usually 60 to 80% of them in the exam are going to be completely new. And I've even had students who would practice and memorize like 2,000 of them. And they come back to me, they say, Alex, most of them are new. Nothing came repeated from repeat sentences. That's right, because they have thousands of them. So don't try to memorize them all from some question bank and database. It's not going to work for repeat sentences. It's going to work in other questions like write from dictation, but not here. So I hope this brought you a lot of value. I have more in-depth videos and tutorials related to this. Make sure to check the link in the description. And if you found at least one of these tips useful, go like it and subscribe right now. And make sure to let me know in the chat as well, in the comments, how many words were you able to get initially and how many words are you able to get after following these tricks for a couple of weeks. This is it for today. I'm Alex from English and Visa Consultancy. If you're looking for coaching, classes, materials, mock tests, immigration advice, make sure to comment and make sure to send us a message. We have the links in the comments and in the description. Until next time, and best of luck with your PTE preparation.